The PG-rated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse features a villain whose final form might be too disturbing for the sequel. So how horrific is the Spot, really? Spider-Man has faced many foes, but none of them have been quite so confusing to fight as the Spot. Voiced by Jason Schwartzman, this villain's big screen debut in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse sees him clumsily trying to use his new powers to rob an ATM, because the job market is unfairly hostile to candidates who have a void where their face should be.
That's not funny.
Well, to be more accurate, it's a portal, and the Spot is covered in them. Try to punch him in the face, and you could wind up punching yourself instead. While attempting to fight him, Miles repeatedly ends up sticking his limbs through his new nemesis instead, with visually mind-bending results. But nothing we see in the movie is quite as horrifying as the Spot's final form in the comics, which we see in issues number 19 through 21 of the 2012 Marvel comic series Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. Here we meet a villain called Coyote, who works for a mysterious organization that has captured the Spot and hooked him up to a machine in order to steal his powers. What does he use them for? Well, for starters, to remove Daredevil's head from his body while still keeping him alive, so he can listen to Coyote's evil monologue. Not only does Coyote have a whole collection of living severed heads stacked in a closet, he's also been smuggling illegal goods across the border, using portals placed on women's stomachs, a visual that body horror auteur David Cronenberg would certainly appreciate. Things really get twisted for the Spot when Daredevil sabotages the machine that his body is hooked up to. The Spot wrenches himself free and disappears, only to reemerge as a terrifying tangle of protruding arms that crawls around like a caterpillar, hell-bent on exacting its revenge. Will any of this horrific imagery find its way into these new Spider-Man films? Will it affect the rating? Across the Spider-Verse has a mostly family-friendly PG rating due to, quote, sequences of animated action violence, some language and thematic elements. But while the Spot starts out as quite a goofy villain, his yearning to be taken seriously as Miles' nemesis drives him across the multiverse in search of another super collider like the one that originally transformed him. When he locates it, he causes chaos in Mumbattan and becomes much darker, scarier, and more powerful than before. The movie's cliffhanger ending leaves Spider-Man still to face his final showdown with the Spot in Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. And since we've already seen this bad guy evolve once, it's possible he could try to level up again with another super collider and end up accidentally twisting himself into the creature from the comics. Given the creativity of the animation in the first two movies, the idea of the Spot's final form being brought to life on the big screen is definitely enticing. But the Motion Picture Association of America might feel differently. The MPAA has pretty strictly defined rules around content like nudity and swearing, but when it comes to the scare factor, things get a little more subjective. The PG-13 rating was originally created in response to movies like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins, which were aimed at family audiences, but contained violence and disturbing scenes that could be too much for younger kids.
Get out of my kitchen!
You might be surprised by some of the horror movies that have since managed to land a PG-13 rating. 2002's The Ring, often cited as one of the scariest movies of all time, is rated PG-13. So is 2019's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, despite containing pure nightmare fuel like The Pale Lady. But there are some movies that have earned a higher rating for unconventional reasons. The Conjuring producer Walter Hamada says he was told by the MPAA that, even though the movie contains very little bloody violence, it would have to be rated R because of how consistently horrifying it is. Sci-fi classic The Matrix is also rated R for no reason other than the excessive amount of gun violence. The closest thing we've seen to the Spot's twisted final form on the big screen is the mannequin monster in Silent Hill Revelation, which was rated R, but mostly for other reasons. Since the MPAA considers not just the extremity of disturbing imagery, but also the amount of it, Beyond the Spider-Verse could probably get away with bringing the Spot's most monstrous appearance to life if it was limited to a small portion of the movie. Whatever the case, it's going to end up being one hell of a final battle.